listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Lenard with NACS.
And I'm Carolyn Schnare, also with NACS.
So that movie, The Graduate, back in the 60s, you remember that, of course, right?
Nope.
One of the classic lines is a kid asking for professional advice, what does the future hold? One-word answer, plastics. So if you fast forward to today, maybe it's 2 words, plastics recycling. We're going to talk about that. So today, we're going to talk about plastics recycling and where does plastics fit into the convenience store environment. And we're joined today by phone by Cara Pochiro, VP of Communications and Public Affairs for the Association of Plastics Recyclers. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So is that a fair description that plastics recycling is the new big topic in industry and retail?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a new topic. Plastic recycling has been around for quite some time now, but it's a relatively new industry, yes.
So, Cara, I've heard you speak before, and you had the big task at the closing of a recent conference that we went to talk about the anti-plastic sentiment. And in some circles, it's plastic's horrible. Let's just get rid of it. Everything should be wrapped in, beeswax or something. But as Jeff and I have talked about over time, especially in the convenience industries, plastic is important. Plastic is important for food safety. It's important because the things that convenience stores sell are single serve. So you take them and you go and you use them. But it's also extremely important, as we've been talking about, to put it in the right place afterwards. So it's about recycling and it's about continuing to reuse and put it back into the system. So there is a whole circular system out there that I know your group and others are advocating. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your position is at APR and why it's important to our industry?
Sure. So you mentioned single-serve plastics, and one of the things we always like to say is it's not single-serve if it's recycled. We've seen lots of things in the media lately saying that plastic recycling doesn't work. All these communities are just completely stopping collection and things like that. But in our industry, we know well that plastic recycling does work. It's important to protecting the environment, and it's essential to the circular economy, which you referenced. It's something that is really necessary in your industry and really at home, too. And it's important to, it provides a lot of jobs. It's an industry. A lot of people see plastic recycling just as kind of a public service, but it's a business, and people need to keep that in mind. We need markets, and we need demand.
And also, education is a big part of this. And you alluded to some of the things earlier. And what do people need to know? And I think one of the big myths you hear right now is it's not worth it because China's not taking recycled products anymore. And that's not entirely true, is it? Can you set up what's going on with recycling and how recycling is effective in our economy?
Absolutely. So there have been a lot of misconceptions about the U.S.'s relationship with China and what types of material they were taking. Yes, they were taking recyclables, plastics, and other materials for many years, but there are strong markets in the United States for many types of plastics that have been staying here. We haven't been exporting every type of recyclable, every type of plastic. There are really strong markets for PET, which is a number 1 plastic, your water bottles, your soda bottles, things like that. There are strong markets in the United States for HDPE, which is your number 2 plastic. That's laundry detergent, other things like household items, sometimes bathroom items like shampoo and conditioner. And there are also strong markets for polypropylene, which is number 5 plastic. And those are things that you often find in your refrigerator, like yogurt tubs, butter tubs, things like that.
I'm glad you mentioned the different numbers. What do consumers need to know about those numbers, or are they not intended for consumers?
Those numbers actually are not intended for consumers. it kind of became that way over the years when communities were trying to educate the citizens about what they should put in their recycling cart. But it's actually all it does is identify what type of plastic that product is made from. Even though it has those arrows around it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it should be recycled. It just tells you what type of plastic it is. But we found that really education is much more effective if you don't necessarily use the numbers, but you just describe what types of things should go in that cart.
So that brings me to a question, and this is a somewhat basic question, but I know a lot about recycling, and I pay a lot of attention to it for NACS and our members, but there are folks out there that just are saying, I don't understand, I'm just going to throw it in the bin, and they'll figure it out, they'll sort it out, literally. Mm-hmm. But can you just take me back a little bit and just say what happens after I, the consumer, puts my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever number bottle or glass or aluminum can into the recycle bin, whether it's at my home or at my gas station or wherever you can find a bin? What happens to it from there? The hauler picks it up and the hauler takes it to a municipal recycling facility, or what we refer to in the industry as a MRF. So this is where all of the different things that you have put in your cart get separated. So first they'll separate out glass, paper, plastics, and aluminum, all the different types of things that are in single-stream recycling. And then from there they'll sort them further, especially for plastics. So that's where they'll sort out, the number ones will go in one area, number twos in another area, and so on. So then those plastics are then baled up into a very compact, heavy bale, and then the recyclers, or they're often called reclaimers, purchase those bales of plastics. They then break the bales apart. They process the material through an extensive process to clean and shred and melt down into a pellet, which is then sold to a manufacturer or a consumer brand company who then uses those to make new products.
And there are some, the reason that retailers in particular are concerned about various elements related to plastics is, as Carolyn mentioned, single-serve beverages, single-serve items, there's an awful lot of plastic involved in that. And there are different requirements in different areas that may have a ban on plastic straws or a ban on plastic bags, or in the UK, I guess there's a plastics aisle ban and various things like that. So as these things crop up and they feel very reactionary, it doesn't feel like they're necessarily solving a problem, but just saying we did something, we want you to do something. So now that we've done something, problem solved.
Right.
But what are some of the broader issues that we can look at in how do we recycle plastics so that we can continue to use plastics where plastic really works better than anything else? Is there any guidance that you have for either consumers or for retailers so that we can continue to effectively use plastic?
Sure. Well, going back, I guess, a little bit to what you mentioned, China, and how people often thought that just because China had cut off that things were not getting recycled anymore. Really, all that has shown us is that we need investment in infrastructure in the United States. And when I say infrastructure, I'm referring to those recycling facilities so that they can the material more efficiently, and then they can create better bales to sell to those recyclers. Consumers, how they can help is really to listen to what their community is telling them to put in their recycling cart. And this is often an issue because different communities take different types of products and different types of packaging and things like that. But it's very important to just follow what your community tells you to put in your recycling bin. Don't necessarily just throw everything in because it's a plastic. And also, something that we really are talking a lot about lately that can help is if consumers pay attention to what they're purchasing. Look at what you're purchasing. Does it contain recycled material? That is definitely key to the success of plastic recycling, and I think that consumers often, don't think about that at all. But if they'll purchase items that are made with recycled material or recycled plastics, that's really helping plastic recycling as well. It's kind of a two-part thing. We want you to recycle. We want you to put those things in the recycling bin or the recycling cart, but we also want you to buy recycled because market demand is really key to the success of the industry.
So some of the suppliers to our industry, and I'll just name a few, but I know there's way more than this, but I know like PepsiCo and Nestle Waters are really trying to or are pledging to increase their recycled content in some of their packaging. And there's also some other things that you guys mentioned at the conference that I never really thought of, but like shelving or the moving crates that you put product on, things like that you could buy recycled. Do you have any guidance for the retailers who are listening that are buying on the supply side?
Absolutely. Our association really has a new program called Recycling Demand Champions, and that is a program that encourages either consumer brand companies, retailers to purchase items that are made with recycled plastics. So they can buy items such as shelving, pallets, bags, really all different types of things that they use in their store. That is really helping the industry as well. You mentioned Pepsi and Nestle Waters. They have a lot of sustainability goals. They're really trying to increase the amount of recycled plastics that they're using in their bottles. That's key to the success of the industry. Again, it addresses that market demand. So if the retailers are purchasing things in their store that they know are made with recycled plastics, including shelving and durable goods like that, but also products. Like if they know that Pepsi is using more recycled plastics in their bottles, then maybe they'll purchase more Pepsi, things like that.
And that's some of the things that Carolyn and I and our team that we look at related to our program called Refresh. And Refresh is about just telling a better story about what we do in communities, not just with nutrition, but related to a whole host of issues, whether it's related to trash and litter or some of the human services, anti-human trafficking, et cetera. And what we found in survey after survey when we asked consumers, what are your top priorities? The idea of trash and litter comes up over and over again as a potential negative if you're not doing it well, and a potential positive if you are doing it well. I assume that you also have both anecdotal and survey data that says that companies that do a good job in not only recycling but telling the recycling story get more business, and people think their products, their drinks they're tastier, their food's better just because you care more about the community. Is that something that you're seeing in any of the outreach that you do among retailers or other communities?
Absolutely. You'll see more and more communities and retailers really trying to sell that story. They want to tell you that, yes, we are concerned if our products are both recyclable and recycled. Those are two really different things that a lot of people kind of bunch together. A great example is Walmart just released their sustainability playbook. So Walmart is encouraging all their suppliers and vendors to make their products not only so that they're recyclable, but also so that they're recycled. And same with communities. They just really need to work on education and letting the consumers and people in the community know what can and can't be recycled and the importance of it.
I think that that's like sustainability pledge, if you will, is really an important. It falls into the corporate social responsibility aspect of things that we've heard a lot of our retailers talk to us about, how they want to tell their story positively. They want to talk about the good things they're doing both in the community and within the environment. And I think you hit on an interesting point with messaging and both telling that story about what you're doing on the corporate side, all the things that you're putting together, all the efforts you're putting into sustainability measures, but also, like you said, just the basic, this is what goes in this bin. And I know Jeff and I have been working on a toolkit that's out. Our retailers or listeners can get it on our website, convenience.org, that explains to our retailers how to recycle, how to put a recycling program in place, and includes messaging such as what goes in this bin. In this case, we're working with cans and bottles recycling because it is kind of the low-hanging fruit. That's what people clean out of their car, and when they're cleaning out their car, they want to put it in the right place. So we're working a lot with that. And then there's also some other labeling on packaging nowadays from the How to Recycle labels. And I think that helps too, because then it tells the consumers what to do with that package. Do I take it to a store for collection? Do I throw it in the bin? Do I put it in my home bin? Or do I have to take it to an entirely separate facility? So I think that's a really important customer-facing program that's out there.
Yes, absolutely. We work closely with the organization that gives the How to Recycle label out to all the different manufacturers and consumer brand companies. So we work with them on who's applying to have the label on their products, and we really dig into the details of, okay, let's look at all the different components. Is this truly recyclable? And then they make sure to put the right label on there. So we work with them on the plastic side of things, and then they work with other organizations for different material types.
And for a couple things, just while communities vary wildly in terms of what they accept and how they can accept it, it's I think it's generally accepted that when you recycle a plastic bottle, cap on, nothing else in it, and that's good pretty much everywhere. If you take the cap off, it's too small to go through the machine for sorting. So is that accurate to say caps on, and that can all be recycled?
Definitely. That's a message that we've been really trying to get out there for years. There's a lot of common misconceptions about that. Some communities are really just individuals think, oh, well, those are two different types of plastics, the bottle and the cap. But that will get separated once it goes through the whole process and is at the recycler. So if you put the cap on the bottle, it's going to make it through that material recovery facility where they sort all the different types of plastics and different materials. And then once it finally makes it to the recycler, that's when they can efficiently separate the different types of plastics. So if the cap's not on the bottle, it's too small, and it will not even get sorted correctly. It will just go in the trash.
So we know that that's generally accepted everywhere. Is there anything that despite the variations around the country, that generally, no, don't put it in the recycling bin? Should I put my G.I. Joes in there, or is that a really bad idea? Or is it even a bad idea to talk about G.I. Joes? But
you could probably get money for that nowadays on eBay
I know. I probably should do that. But is there something that you say, okay, don't even think about recycling this because there's nowhere in the country that's going to be taking it?
Well, I think one thing that you could say, don't even think about recycling this in your curbside, would be plastic bags and wraps that maybe go around paper towels and toilet paper and sometimes big packs of water. That is recyclable material, but those need to be taken back to retailers or grocers that have a separate program to take those. When people put those in their curbside collection, generally, that causes a really big problem once it makes it to that material recovery facility, the MRF. When those things get to that facility, they wrap up around all the machines that separate the different types of material, and just can cause a whole host of problems. So in general, for those types of things, they need to go back to the retailer, the bags and the wraps.
So don't even take garbage bags and wrap things that do belong in the bin in a plastic bag. Right.
That's a common message that we've gotten out there as well. It's don't bag your recyclables. Put them in there loose.
Well, and I've got an image of a hairbrush with all the hair that's wrapped around it, and that's what that bag does to the recycling thing, the machine, the sorter. That's the word.
Oh, I thought the hairbrush was in the recycling bin.
Well, I think you could if it's the right kind of plastic, and they'll figure it out. Right. Just throw it in the bin. I'm just kidding.
No, there is.
Don't do that.
There is the aspect of.
That's a great description, though. How hair wraps all around your brush. That's what happens with the bags and the wraps in a separation facility.
And there is the element of aspirational recycling, and just the idea that just if I believe the line is, when in doubt, throw it out, because if the recycling stream becomes too contaminated with other things that don't belong in there, the whole shipment or something gets rejected. So it's best to really know what you're supposed to recycle, pay attention to the local regulations, and we're all better off for it.
True. true. It is definitely best. And I understand that, where people think that they're doing the best thing if they say, well, just throw it in there, they'll figure it out. But really, most of the time, that's just going to cause more problems. It's either going to, those things that aren't really recyclable will get mixed up with things that are recycled, which can cause issues, or really it just leads to going through the whole separation process, but still ending up in the landfill.
So as we start to wrap up, Kara, I just wanted to go back and just point out one more time that recycling is important, and also buying recycled, as you mentioned, two different things, recycling and recycled. But the buying recycled helps drive up that economy, which makes the recycling a little possibly cheaper down the line, and maybe now it drives down that hauling cost. It drives down the expense that a store or a person or someone might face in their garbage bill at the end of the day. We want to do both.
Exactly. As I mentioned earlier, recycling is a business. We need we need those markets to be strong and vibrant. We need supply and we need demand. So if manufacturers and those consumer brand companies know that people want to buy recycled, then they will put more recycled material in their packaging and in their products. If the recyclers know that they have a guaranteed market and that they'll be able to sell their material, then they can pay more for those bales. And then those material recovery facilities can invest in improving and expanding there. And then also haulers. So you're exactly right. Consumers actually play a big role in that. We not only want you to put your products in the recycling stream, we also want you to buy recycled.
Well, I hope that our industry, our convenience and retail gas station industry, can help by collecting some more of that recycle material. But I can't even getting all my words.
Be part of the process.
Thank you, Jeff. Kara, because I'm not doing it as well as you would, can you tell us where our listeners could find more about the research that you cited and some of the cool stuff that you guys are doing?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you can go to our website. It's recycling.org. We have a whole host of resources available on our website. A lot of those resources are really more industry-facing rather than consumer-facing, meaning that we work to educate communities and the industry about recycling, but you can still find a lot of resources there. One of our programs I mentioned earlier was the Recycling Demand Champions, and that is really growing. We're really excited about that. We've had a lot of very big companies commit to the program that they will increase the amount of recycled plastics they purchase. Some of those, just to name a few, are Target, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, just trying to think of some that people are very familiar with. But that just continues to grow. We work with a lot of other organizations, too, that do a lot for recycling. One is the Recycling Partnership, where they work directly with communities to expand and improve their recycling programs. They have a lot of great educational materials available on their website as well.
So in summary, caps on when you recycle. Bags are bad, at least at curbside recycling. Don't pay attention to the numbers, but pay attention what the local community recycling needs are and follow them. Recycle, buy recycled. And thank you, Kara.
And thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.